So I guess we'll get started. Good morning, everybody who's here. It seems like there are some of you who are in the background as well. So I just want to say good morning to everybody. I'm Ruth O'Donnell. The workshop that I'm going to be offering you today, I'm pretty excited about. It's called Become a Stress Reduction Powerhouse. My background is in kinesiology. I'm a kinesiologist with an emphasis in foot and hip health. In my work, I'm a yoga teacher and a kinesiologist, and in my work, we say that a foot conversation is a whole body conversation. So my primary interest is in helping as many people as possible figure out that and remember that we have tools in our own body for self-regulation that we don't often access as much as we look to external sources. So I've been working with Melissa and Livity Rising for a few years now, and I really love that. I love the work that Livity Rising does for the community, and it's filled with like this tenderness and kindness and generosity. And so I was really excited when I got to work with her on this. Last year, when we started planning all this out, we were trying to figure out what kind of workshop I would teach. And she said, "Oh, Ruth, just teach the stuff that you wish somebody had taught you back in the day that nobody ever did. So buckle your seats because we're going to be here till midnight." No, but what I did was I really took that to heart because I thought, well, what are the concepts that I use in my life that have helped me the most with my background? And I'm here to share some of those with you today. So the format of the call is going to be kind of jam-packed. We have about 60 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you some practices that I believe are underutilized and under-highlighted and under-spotlighted, but have like very powerful effects. So what's going to happen is I'm going to give you these abbreviated little experiments that we're going to do. And the workshop is going to be divided into two parts. So let's just get a little bit of the housekeeping out of the way and to start. So if we happen to go longer than 60 minutes and you need to jump off the call, remember that this will be recorded. So if something that we're doing resonates with you and you have to leave, you can always come back to the recording, which will be offered. We'll also offer a PDF that will have resources and links and different explorations beyond what is being covered in this 60-minute workshop. And then we'll also stay after for those of you that want to maybe ask questions or have a conversation. We'll be on for, as long as we can after the 60 minutes is up. The equipment that you'll want to have, first of all, equipment is optional. However, if you have sensitive knees, we'll be going down to the ground for some of this. So if you have sensitive knees and you want to have a blanket or something under there, you can roll up your yoga mat or do something like that, then you will want to have that accessible. And then we have some practices that will require us to not only get on our hands and knees, but maybe on the ground. All of this is optional. I see that some of you are like in an environment where you actually have mats, and that's wonderful. But if you're at your desk, are all the practices. I've set a desk up behind me so that I can demonstrate everything that we're going to do together in the desk arena. So if you have limited mobility, we'll start with those options first, and then we'll work into something that is maybe a little deeper or a little more spicy. Okay, so with that being said, let's see, does anybody have any questions before we go on so far? Okay, so I'm highly interactive. Before we go on, let me tell you about the format of the workshop. So the first half is called Become a Mover. And in this part of our time together, we're going to explore some principles. The principles, I call it your nervous system in 2 minutes or less. and the SEDS principle, which means specific adaptation to imposed demands. Basically, your body is a magical, healing, self-organizing machine designed to feel good and be balanced all the time. And it is going to adapt to any inputs you give it. So we'll cover that a little bit more. In that particular portion, we're going to talk about our feet, right? So I'm a foot, ankle, knee, and hip specialist. So I want to let you know ahead of time that I will be asking you if it's comfortable for you to take off your shoes and socks. Now, if that doesn't work for you, that's no problem. You can either watch what we're doing, or you can do this with your socks on, make whatever adaptations that work for your body, because you're the boss of your own body. And I'm just going to give you suggestions, and you could go look at the video afterwards, and then, explore in the privacy of your own home. So that's something. So we'll be working with, in the Become a Mover section, we're going to be working first with our feet, and then we're going to be working some with our hips. So I'd like you to have some type of, if you know that you have limited hip mobility, we're going to be working on some movements to restore a squatting position, which traditionally our bodies, we've always used our hips in their full mobility. The hip is like a giant ball and socket joint that's designed to go forward, back, side to side, and everything circular in between, but we don't use it in that way. So we're going to be working a little bit on restoring a deep squat. And so you'll want to have something sturdy to hold on to. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, again, don't do anything that you feel is dangerous for you, but I definitely want you to try to explore some of the things that we're doing in whatever way works for you. So that's the overview of the first part. The second half of our workshop is going to be designed to work along a spectrum. So I have talked with hundreds and hundreds of people, and I can summarize like what people seem to want from their well-being or their health. Everything that I have learned, the basic boiling down is this: people want to be able to sleep deliciously and restoratively and restfully when it's time to do that, right? They want to go to bed and they want to sleep deeply and wake up feeling refreshed when it's time at night, not like in the middle of their workday, when they need to be clear and focused. And then they want to be able to be calm and relaxed and alert and at ease when the situations of their life call for it. And then along that other spectrum at the very end, when it's time to feel alert and focused and energized, people want to be able to do that too. So I have a strong interest in being able to, in helping people to remember that they're able to do that more reasonably and easily throughout their day, because we tend to want something that fixes those things quick, like coffee, or externally, some external input that we take that puts us in those states of mind. And I'm not saying those things are bad, but we actually have a lot inside of us that we can utilize, and plenty of tools. So the tools that we're going to be exploring today, like I said, are a little bit off the beaten path in some regards in the second half. The calming portion of our practice will be, we'll cover something called Yoga Nidra. It'll be a guided meditation. You'll follow the sound of my voice, and I'll explain a little bit of the science behind that so you know what we're doing. So we'll take you into a relaxed state. And then we're going to be working with a technique called EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique. And it's a tapping, we tap on acupressure points on our body while speaking some phrases, and that's very interesting, kind of bypasses the thinking mind, goes right to our subconscious. And I found this to be very powerful when nothing else works, to relieve my own anxiety and to help me get into states of mind that I want to be in when I want to be in them. So we'll have the calming practice, and that'll consist of 2 experiments. And then we'll have, for the final portion of our workshop, we'll have the energizing. So respecting and honoring that you're probably in the middle of your work days right now, or you're getting ready to ramp up for the main part of your day, we'll want to bring you back to this focused, alert, energized, and revitalized state of mind. So those practices at the end will be geared towards that. So the experiment that we're going to work with is called bioenergetic shaking. And I'll give you a little bit of science around what that is, and then we'll do an experiment together. And then if time permits, we'll do a second re-energizing tapping, reviewing the places where you tap on your body and following the guidelines that I set for you. And if we don't have time for that, the script will be in the PDF, and there'll be like exercises that you can follow on your own. But you'll get a taste of everything. And that's going to be the way that we will structure our workshop today. So right now, what I would like for you to do, I'm not sure if everybody's going to be able to do this in the chat. And you don't have to put it in the chat, but I would like to see. We want to think about the number of hours you're awake during the day. So like what time you get up and what time you go to bed, and calculate those hours. And then we're going to come back to this calculation a little bit later on, but I want you to think about all the time that you spend sitting. So, and when I mean sitting with your body in this flexed position. It's chair sitting. So sometimes you're not going to be able to see my face, but you should still hear my voice. Can I get a thumbs up? Okay, so sitting in the chair seated position where your hips are flexed at 90 degrees and your knees are flexed at 90 degrees. I want you to calculate how many hours a day are you in that position. So I want you to think about your commute to work in the car. I want you to think about breakfast at the table, sitting at your desk, your commute home, sitting at a table for dinner, a restaurant, or home. All the hours that you spend with your body in that position, that zigzag 90-90 flexed hips and flexed position. So can you take a moment now for me and calculate that in your brain, and then put that in the chat, or at least have it in your own brain for the self-awareness when we come back to the Become a Mover. So I'm just going to be quiet and let you think about that self-reflection exercise. Oh, someone put in the chat for the day or the week. So just do one, well, like think of one day, and then that usually is like an average. Let's just do one day. It's like magic that the words just pop up on the screen. Okay, so 17 hours awake, 7 hours sitting. I'm just going to give about one more minute and then we'll move on. Okay, so keep that number in the back of your mind, and we're gonna come back to that in just a minute. We're going to start the first portion of our workshop today called Become a Mover. And the rest of our workshop is going to be based on these two principles. They're super simple. It's your nervous system in 2 minutes or less, and then the SEDS principle, specific adaptations to impose demands. And Cody started to cover this in a workshop that she did a few months ago. And so we'll start with the nervous system. So in my work, the teachers in my work always say, like, try to explain everything that we do so that a 10-year-old can understand it. And then you know for sure that you're teaching those concepts well, because if we have specialized practices, not everybody understands that jargon or that language. So I realized that the nervous system seems kind of complex, right? Like we have a brain and we have a spinal cord, but really the human organism is a sensory machine. We're basically a magical self-organizing machine that's designed for getting information, processing information, and generating a response or no response. And that's it. So let me just say that again. Our human, amazing, juicy bodies are designed to receive external input from our external surroundings, process that in our brains and our spinal cords and nervous tissue. Like our heart has like a ton of nervous tissue. It is an electrical nervous system. Your belly and your gut, many of you probably know, it has its own brain in there full of nervous tissue, which is information processing center. So we take information from our external world and we take information from inside our bodies, the organs, the glands, the tissues, and then our brains and our spinal cords process that. We generate some type of a response, or there's no response. So we're always, and the whole point of this is to create comfort in our bodies. Like I love this idea. Like our body is so awesome. We have a tendency to pathologize or to make the body sometimes an enemy if we hurt too much. But the truth is that our body is really designed to receive instructions from us and to create homeostasis or balance, to create some semblance of balance. So that's your nervous system in 2 minutes or less. I don't know if I actually succeeded in that, but hopefully that gives you just like an overview. And then everything else that you learn about your nervous system is gravy. The SEDS principle, or specific adaptations to impose demands, what that means is that your human organism, your nervous system, will adapt to whatever inputs you give it. And it does that magically. That's why I asked you to record the amount of hours that you sit in a day, because in this section of Become a Mover, if we're sitting for more than 3 hours a day, and first let me say that this, like if you're sitting for more than 3 hours a day, that is not something for you to feel bad about yourself with, but it's just collecting data so that we can ask ourselves questions on what we really want to do with our bodies, and then start to make changes if once you realize that we are adapting to whatever we do the most with our bodies. American culture especially, we are a sitting dominated culture, which means that if we sit for more than 3 hours a day, I mean, I was shocked when I heard that Americans sit for anywhere between 9 and 13 hours a day on average. That your hips, the main part of your body that are designed to move, your hip flexors or the front of your hips and your feet and your knees, essentially you adapt to that. Your body does this magic adaptation. It will adapt to the thing that you do with it the most. So for when you want to do something different with your body, like go for a hike or run or train for a marathon or pick up grandchildren or children, we start to have discomfort in our bodies. And we're really not designed to have discomfort in our bodies if we move regularly. So the science says that we are defined as a sitter, which is not very good for us. If we're sitting in that seated position, fixed seated chair position for more than 3 hours a day. If we go to the gym, which like I definitely have switched my whole lifestyle, because I've been in exercise my whole life as a kinesiologist. I've been in the gyms my whole life, personal training, strength and conditioning, all the things that could do with human movement. Only in the last 3 years have I switched. I don't really go to the gym anymore. Nothing against gym atmospheres or anything, just that we have a tendency to maybe go to the gym 3 hours a week or when we can fit it in, because we want to feel better and we want to look better and we want to move better and such. And what that is now being called is a sedentary mover, which means the effects of sitting are still wreaking havoc on our beautiful bodies. So the solution is simple, though. The solution is that can we move, like a good heuristic or a rule of thumb is that can you move all day regularly in any enjoyable way? Just move more than you sit. And that takes time and practice and self-awareness. So do you have any questions before we actually get into the experiments? Okay, so if you give me a thumbs up, we're going to go ahead and start working with the feet. Let me make sure I covered everything. Okay, so the next portion of our workshop is going to deal directly with the feet. So I'm going to give you a little information about the feet while you get maybe out of your shoes and socks if you feel comfortable. If not, that's fine. I'm just going to carry on and show you what we're doing. And you can either follow along with me physically, or you can save this for later when you are before your shower or something. So Leonardo da Vinci, he calls the human foot, I love these models, He calls the human foot a master of engineering and a work of art. In our foot, there are 33 joints in each foot. And if you don't know what a joint is designed to do, it's designed to move. So if a quarter of the joints in our body are in our feet and they're designed to move, either like a hip joint, that big ball and socket, or little bones that are come together and are designed to glide and twist and move. And this is a beautiful architecture of engineering. The problem is that we put them into shoes, which act like a cast, if you will. So if you've ever had a broken bone or you have had to have one of your joints immobilized, you know that when you take that cast off, your muscles have probably atrophied because they're not being used. You're stiff and you feel weak, and it takes some rehab to get the strength back. So imagine if you're keeping your feet in shoes, which is a similar thing like a cast. Now, and I'm aware that I'm probably saying a lot, that like maybe the shoe people say you need more support, you need a stiffer shoe and all of that. So I'm aware that this might be information that is contrary to what maybe we hear regularly by the orthopedic surgeon or the physical therapist. I'm going to say it anyway. So getting out of your shoes and going barefoot more regularly, shoes that have any type of a heel or are stiff and inflexible or are not shaped like feet. So what happens is we put our shoes, especially the ladies, because we love cute pointy shoes. And then what happens is our foot adapts based on specific adaptation to impose demands, right? So our foot adapts and becomes shaped like the shoe. And that's no good for the architecture of everything happening upstream. So if your knees and your back are hurting, there's a good chance that if you take away the chair and you move a little bit more regularly, or you sit differently and you take the shoe out of the equation, and you start to transition to what we call a natural shoe, or a shoe shaped like a human foot that allows the feet to become supple and strong and less stiff, then you will start to notice that your knees, I can vouch for this, your knees and your low back will start to feel better. So just before we go on to the actual exercise, I have some examples of shoes. So natural footwear it's kind of a thing right now, and they can tend to be expensive. But I found these, which are, if you think about footwear as the 4 Fs, they're flat, you can feel the ground underneath you. They are flexible. So I found this shoe at Target, and it's flexible like that. And it's shaped like a foot. So this shoe I wear, it's curved, because we really want the shoe to not be curved. We want it to be foot shaped, which means that your toes get to splay like a hand. Like your feet are actually designed to act like a little hand at the bottom of your feet. At the bottom of your legs. So your toes are actually designed to be able to spread like your hands spread, your fingers spread, and you should be able to move your toes individually. That takes a little practice and time if they've been casted in shoes for long periods of time, right? So this is an example of what's called a natural footwear. This is what I play tennis in, and the big toe does not curve in, right? So it's flexible. So this is like an athletic shoe. It's flexible. It's as wide as the foot, as the toe. It's really widest at the toe box. It's flat. I can feel the ground underneath me. Took me a year to get used to wearing this on the tennis court, but now it works great. So I want to emphasize that you don't want to do too much too fast, especially if you're used to wearing a heeled shoe. Even like a running shoe is considered a heel. You want to go take it slow and gradual, or you run the risk of injuring yourself more. So with that being said, let's play with the feet a little bit. So are you all in a position to either touch your feet or watch me touch my feet? So I'm going to sit here I'm going to move this. You might not be able to see my face, but I'm going to move this around for a second. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to, if you don't have the flexibility in your hips to get your foot to cross your ankle like this, then you can put your foot on a chair or something in front of you, an ottoman at home or whatever you have. You're going to take your foot in your hand. I'm just going to show you like this. And you're going to take your fingers and you're going to put them in between each toe. Now, this might be uncomfortable if you're not used to going barefoot or you're not used to having toe splay, or maybe you have bunions or something like that. But there just should be a little bit of discomfort, but you don't want to be like wincing in pain. And if you're holding your breath and you can't breathe, then there's a chance you've gone too far. But now we're just going to essentially shake hands with our toes. I'm going to put my foot here so you can see a little bit better. And all you're going to do is you're going to squeeze so that there's a little bit more pressure in between each toe and release. Squeeze and release. Squeeze and release. Squeeze and release. So when you have had enough of that, you can remove your fingers and then just stretch your toes forward and back, and then maybe just pulling them apart. You can look inside your toes and just get an idea of how does that feel. And then change sides and do the same thing on the other side. So again, you get your foot in a position where you can get your finger, index finger in between the big toe and the second toe. And then you, like on this left side, I broke this foot when I was a kid and it was in a cast too long. And I created a bunion on that side. And it's interesting because I'm still correcting this bunion through walking barefoot and switching to natural shoes. But I realized that my left side was always where I sprained my ankle when I played basketball. My left knee has an ACL reconstruction, like my whole left side never, because this big toe has so much responsibility in how we stabilize our bodies when we're walking. And this has a bunion and it always goes in, and I always wore pointy shoes. So I'm still trying to work that out. So shake hands with your foot and then squeeze and release the ball of the foot so that you get more pressure in between each toe. And then when you've had enough of that, remove your hand from your feet. And then just take a second and a few breaths and just pay attention to the feelings in your feet and see if you notice any difference. Maybe while I'm putting my bench back, you can put something in the chat that might give me an indicator of how you're doing. Did anybody notice anything different? And maybe you can just give me an idea. Has anybody ever done that before? Anything like that? Does anybody work with their feet already? Okay.
Yes, someone has done that before. I have not.
Okay, did you do it, Yasmin?
Yeah.
Can you feel any difference?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm someone who wears shoes like all the time, and I don't spread out my toes. Like my sister used to like be able to spread out her toes like that, and I was always fascinated by that. I was like, how do you do that? Like, and this, I mean, I see like me doing this, like kind of helping with that, like my feet mobility, you know?
Yeah. And the crazy thing is that we think about people that can do that with their feet as that's something unique, but all of our feet are designed to do that. Your aunt goes to physical therapy and they introduced her to it. Oh, that's wonderful. So I'm going to show you a couple things. So these are called toe spreaders, right? So you can get these online. They are varying degrees of or you can go to pedicure, you know, the things that they put in your feet at the pedicure, those work pretty good. So you can have these toe spreaders, which go in between your toes like that, and that will passively start to restore the shape of your foot. If you don't want to, if you don't want to spend, I think they range between like, I don't know, maybe $8, $25. There's all different toe spreaders on the internet that you can find. But you can also go to like CVS or Walgreens and you can get these, they're called gel toe spacers. And these are actually designed for to put in between each of your toes. So you could just go to the pharmacy and pick up some of these, and that will help you put those in between each of your toes, and maybe like watch your Netflix program or whatever while you're doing that. And that'll just passively start to restore the shape of your foot. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to, in the equipment list, I forgot to say in the beginning, but in the equipment list, we said you might want to bring a tennis ball. So I'll show you, and you can join along with me if you have a tennis ball, but if not, that's no problem. You can come back to the instructions a little bit later on. This is a lacrosse ball. It's a little bit harder, and it gives you a little bit more pressure on the bottom of your foot. The tennis ball, there's a little more give to it, and anybody can have access to it. A lacrosse ball, you'd have to go to a sporting goods store or order online if you wanted to play around with this. We recommend the lacrosse ball, but the tennis ball works great too. So I'm going to stand up. You won't see my face for a moment, but you will see my feet. You get all my toys out of the way. So with your tennis ball, what you want to do is you want to roll, put some pressure and roll the foot along the foot forward and back really slow, noticing where there are tender spots. So you roll along the side. If you roll onto the heel, you get into the bony spots. You know, you can, but we're really interested in restoring the muscles and the mobility in between the tendons and the bones. So just roll really slow forward and back. And when you find a spot that's tender, I want you to stay there and put a little more pressure there. Remember, you're the boss, so you get to figure out what works for you. So if you can't smooth out your breathing, you've gone too far. But find a tender spot and just stay there for a moment or two. On my left side, I have this one spot that just recently resolved. And I think it was from when I told you I had broken my foot when I was a child. That was like 50 years ago. And so I just put a little pressure there every day. And little by little, it just resolved. Once you've done the forward and back motion a little, put your heel on the ground. And then sometimes the tennis ball can get away from you. This takes a little bit of practice and control. But now you're going to roll the ball along the forefoot or the base of the foot sideways, right and left. And try to go as slow as you can and just notice what's happening there and continue to breathe. And then I'm going to try to get a look at you while you're doing that, if you are doing it. And then once you have done that side, let's go ahead and move to the other side. So we'll do the other side, the other foot. I'll turn around so you can see. And the same thing, you're going to go forward and back along the length of the foot. Maybe avoid the bony places like the heel, where that might cause a little more pain than usual. But this is a really great way to restore the suppleness of the muscles and the space in between the bones of the feet. And then when you're ready, you're going to put the heel on the ground and go side to side. Good. Okay, so we'll stop there. So we tell people that if you were to have a tennis ball, you can do this at your desk. It's always best to do it standing because you can put some of your pressure, you can put more of your body weight onto the ball. But if you have a lot of limited mobility, then you could easily do this sitting at your desk until you you'll start to notice really quickly that the feet will respond and start to feel better. And you may notice all the way upstream that there are little micro adjustments. We call this personal chiropractics, that you will start to notice some really nice releases in the feet, the knees, the hips. So twice a day, you know, before or anytime. I keep tennis balls, you know, where they won't kill people in the house, or lacrosse balls, but like anytime if I'm making coffee. So little habits, tiny habits create like pretty big changes over a long period of time. So that's the tennis ball. The next thing we're going to go on to is, I want you to stand up. It always makes stuck energy. Yeah. Yeah, Melissa says it always makes stuck energy move throughout my body. Yes, it's very true. Like you just feel little pops and releases, and it can be it starts to feel good. You will notice right away. But I like you to stand up. I'm gonna stand up again, and then I like, if at all possible, I'd love to see your feet, because we're gonna mess around a little bit with some toe yoga. I have one toe spreader in and one toe spreader not. So I want you to look down at your feet. And then what you're going to do is you're going to try to keep your 8 little toes down on the ground, and your 2 big toes, try to lift them up off of the ground. Yeah. How'd you do? Okay, so now put your 2 big toes on the ground and try to lift all of the other 8 toes off of the ground. And look at your hands and see if your hands are trying to do what your feet are doing. Yeah. And so go back and forth, put your 2nd through your 5th toe down on the ground, and then switch and switch and switch. Good. What did you notice by doing this? And you can, I'm happy if you unmute yourself and tell me, or you can tell me in the chat. I will just share with you what
we're having trouble doing that.
Yes, so the brain doesn't remember how to do that movement. You know, our feet are so far away from our brains too, right? Like, and they're in shoes. And so we forget that they're down there, and we don't use them in the way that they're designed to be utilized. This is a practice that's great in the shower. But you know, like if you're just rinsing off in the shower and you look down and you start to practice, and I will tell you that you will start to notice a difference. Little tiny habits that you do throughout your day will make big changes over periods of time. Okay, so great job. I think that's going to be it for our feet. Actually, let's do one more thing right now. So if you have sensitive knees, you're going to come down to the ground. And if you have sensitive knees, put a blanket or something under your feet, or your knees rather. And then you're going to come into this tabletop position, tuck your toes underneath. So I'm just going to warn you, this is called screaming toe pose. So if you're not familiar with this, the name or fire toes, it gives you a little bit of a preview of what's to come. So you're going to get on your hands and knees and tuck your toes underneath. And if you have wrist issues, make fists with your hands, and you can just put your fist down, and that'll take some of the pressure off of your wrists. From here, what you're going to do is you're going to start to put some weight into your toes. Let me do this a little bit more so you can see. Okay, so the toes are designed to be able to bend at those joints. So you want to try to sit back and breathe, but sit back onto your toes and bend them forward, and then come forward if you've had enough and tap it out. And then tuck them under again. Remember, you're the boss, so you do what feels right for you, but I want you to get a little bit of movement into the toes, and then come out, tap them again. Or if you can manage to sit in that position and sit all the way up, you know, some of you might have a little experience. You can sit all the way onto your hips and put your full body weight into your toes. That's what it's designed. Your toes are able to handle your full body weight. Those joints are, but we don't believe that because we don't do that regularly. So when you're finished, come on out of that and we will carry on. I just want to ask if there's any questions or comments before we go on to our whole body exercise and the talk about hips. Okay, thumbs up, we go on. All right, so the next part is we're going to give you a little bit of a routine that you can do at your desk. As I said before, we want to try to move regularly and often throughout our day. And that will start to use our joints in the way that they're designed to be used, right? So the first thing we're going to do is you're going to stand up. And so this is like a routine, but you can take any one of these practices that I'm going to show you, and you can incorporate them. You know, you can do it when I do a lot of stuff. If I'm at a hotel and I go to the bathroom, I do some stuff in public, in the bathroom, just to move my body. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our arms out to the side, and I like to call this dish rag arms. We're going to start to rotate the arms in opposite directions, like you're wringing out a dish rag. So if you sit at the desk for long periods of time, this is a wonderful way to start to restore some of the motion in your upper body. So take your arms out to the side, and then you can start to let your neck get involved if it wants to be. So our body tissues actually develop in spirals and circles. And so the body recognizes a lot of these movements and will start to give you signals that it feels good. So do that a few more times. Let your body, or maybe even your hips, get involved, and you start to side bend a little bit. You can bend your elbows, but moving in these circular motions tends to feel really juicy and good. And then when you're done, just stand with soft knees or bent knees and just stand and notice and see if you can feel a difference. Okay, so take your arms overhead now and grab your elbows. When you grab your elbows, gently pull up towards the ceiling and then plant your feet on the ground a little bit more, and we're going to side bend. So this is not designed to do a ton, but to restore some movement and functionality to your spine. So go side to side, bending right and left. And if this feels good for you, start to look down at your opposite ankle. So get your neck involved. If this is not working for your neck, no problem, don't do it. You're the boss. Good, and come back to the center and take your arms down by your side. Good. So if you're at a desk, and it looks like a lot of you are not at a desk, but we're going to work on what you probably recognize as like a quad stretch or a front of the thigh stretch. If you have a lack of mobility, you can put your ankle on a chair behind you, and then you can grab on to the back of your pant leg and pull the bottom of your leg up. So I'm going to come around a little bit closer. And now if you can go and grab your ankle, do that. So you want to start to feel something in the front of your thigh, but more importantly, I want you to feel something in the front of your hip. This motion here is going to counteract the effects of sitting if you do it regularly and often. And what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze the butt cheek and push the hip forward. Try not to go into a low back bend or dump into the low back, and then gently pull your heel towards your booty. So that could look something like this, and then you squeeze the butt and push the hip forward. So you squeeze the butt muscle, push the hip forward. So any part of that spectrum, do that. So the idea is that you feel the stretching in the front of the hip, which starts to unclamp those hip flexors that have been sitting in that 90 position that have gotten tight and weak. Okay, so that is front of the thigh and hip stretch. And now if you need to hold on to a desk for mobility, you can do that. But the next thing you're going to do is going to assess the strength of the front of your hip by pulling your knee as high as you can get it up towards your chest. So that could be something that looks like this, or if you can pull a little higher, keeping the opposite leg straight, do that. When you get to your highest point, I want you to hold the knee there, let go, and take your arm out to the side. If the knee drops, that gives you some data points about the strength of the front of your hip. So go to the other side and do that same thing. So if you, it looks like some of you, there's a lot of you that aren't at a desk. And what I want you to do is clasp the knee in front. First, get your stability on your standing leg, and then see if you can pull your knee all the way up as high as it will go, yeah? So stay there and then let go and see if you can keep the knee there. What that's telling you, that information, oh yeah, that's pretty good. So if the knee immediately drops, that's giving you some information about the strength of your hips. And from sitting, those get weak and they get tight. And that's a pretty bad combination over time. So, okay, from there, let's play around with the squatting. I'm gonna turn my booty to you. And I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you first what we're gonna do, and then I'll show you the desk if you need mobility, if you need stability and mobility for balance. You're gonna get your hands on your thighs and you're gonna rotate side to side in these side lunges, right? But it's not just any side lunge. You want to try to get some stretching sensation in the inner thigh. Yeah. And so if you can do that, and if you feel strong in this position and you don't feel like the knee is stretching and the thigh is stretching, and you feel like you want something a little more, you can stay in that position, maybe even turning your toes up. You know, so this is a movement in our hip that we don't do very often. And this is how it looks if you need support. You hold on to something sturdy like the desk, and then you go side to side by holding on. Yeah, good. And now we're going to alternate between that and the assisted squat. So we're going to hold on to this desk. You want to hold on to something sturdy that won't come out. And then you're going to start to lower yourself down into a squat. So it might be here, or if you feel like you can get your booty down, do that. Yeah. And if you have limited mobility, then you just sit on the ground and then stand up. If you're feeling, feisty and you want to try it again and then stand up from here, you can slowly see where the little glitches are, try to stand up from that position. So that's the second level. And then the third level is that you keep your feet facing forward and then you try to get down into that squatting position. Can you hold yourself there? Maybe you drop back, that's okay. You're just collecting information. But this deep restorative squat, our hips are designed for this. And in fact, there's a lot of really interesting studies that talk about how that hips, when they go below the knees, actually send a lot of interesting nervous information about digestion and elimination. And like we do a lot better when we can restore that deep squat. So I want to go on because I want to respect our time. And remember, these are short, abbreviated experiments of longer practices. Let's see. Oh, okay. So this next one is on the ground. Again, if you need to have something underneath your knees, get there now. I'm starting to break a sweat here. So I'm going to lift up my calves because a lot of sitting makes our calves tight and stiff. So again, if you have wrist issues, you can put your hands in a fist position and then rest on that. What you're going to do is you're going to take the opposite leg across, right down where the Achilles tendon is, and then just put a little weight in there. So kind of like how we were rolling out the ball.
Ruth,
Yeah.
Ruth, when you move your head over your microphone, it's getting really muffled and kind of loud. So
Okay. How is it now?
It's great. It's just when you turn your head over to that side, it's like distorting your speech.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Should I repeat what I said?
Yes,
okay.
I think that would be good.
Okay, so you're gonna take your opposite ankle and put it over. And now you're going to sit back and you're essentially putting little pressure points into the opposite calf. So you might notice that it's really tender in certain spots. And this is such a good relief for your ankles and your hips and everything upstream. So this is one way to do it, where you just press into the tissue itself, or you can start to make like this kind of praying mantis movement. And sometimes it's easier if you have pants on, and then you can really get into the tissue back there, which doesn't, even if you were to go to a massage therapist, you don't get that kind of depth where you can control it. So find a tender spot that feels good and stay there. And then change sides when you're ready. Okay. Okay, so that concludes Become a Mover for today. The practices at your desk can be done, you could do one thing at a time, essentially just a few little tidbits on how you can move regularly. We like to ask people to get out of their desk every 15 to 20 minutes. Even if you don't leave your desk, just get up and do something. A side bend, a squat, the side-to-side lunges, something that will move your hips and get your body moving all day in any way you can. Just move regularly. So I think what we'll do next is we'll switch into the calming practice. So go ahead and take a seat, and or if you brought a yoga mat, and it looks like some of you have abilities to lay down, this is great. Okay. Find a position that feels really good for you to listen to me. Yoga Nidra is a guided meditation. It's designed to take our brain waves into a theta state. So an example of that would be like, you know how when you're driving, this isn't necessarily a good thing, but you know how when you're driving and you get to your destination and you don't even remember how you got there? That's like a theta state brainwave. Additionally, if you are drifting off to sleep and you're in the space just between deep sleep and awake, where your body is super deeply resting, but your brain is still kind of awake, that is also the theta state. So what I'd like you to do right now is find a position that feels good for you. I'm going to take you through that guided meditation. So you could be lying down on your back on a mat. If you have low back pain, you can put yourself in constructive rest, which means that your feet go wider than your hips, your knees are bent, and your knees are resting in on each other. And that can alleviate some back pressure. It looks like this. Otherwise, you can go ahead and lie on your back with your palms facing up. And all you're going to do is you're going to follow the instructions of my voice. So this calming and restorative practice of Yoga Nidra, or the yogic sleep, is designed to give your thinking brain a little task, because the brain is designed to think 60 to 1,000 thoughts a day. So we don't necessarily want it to stop thinking. So we give it a task, which is you following my instructions. And then your body is resting. So if you fall asleep, that's no problem. But we will try to remain awake and alert. And all we're going to do is we're going to rotate our awareness around our body. And you're going to do that by following the sound of my voice. So if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, do that now. If you don't, you can just look kind of right down toward the tip of your nose, or soften your gaze towards your cheeks. And that will give your brain the signal to relax. And now your only job is to follow the instructions of my voice. So I would like you to take a breath that's right for you. And then bring your awareness to the sounds as far away as your ears can hear. And now bring your awareness to the sounds as close to your body inside the room that you can hear. And now bring your awareness to your right hand, your right thumb, index finger. Take your attention to your right middle finger, ring finger, your pinky finger, the palm of your hand, the back of your right hand, your entire right arm. Bring your awareness to your right shoulder, the whole right side of your torso, the right hip, the entire right leg, front and back, your right foot, your big toe, second toe, third toe, fourth toe, little pinky toe, the whole entire right foot, the whole right side of your body. Bring your attention to your whole right side of your body, remaining awake and alert, but the body is resting. Bring your attention to your left hand, the left thumb, the index finger, middle finger, ring finger, pinky finger. Take your attention and your brain waves right into the palm of your left hand, the back of your left hand, the whole entire left arm, the whole left side of your torso, your left hip, your whole entire left leg, front and back. Bring your attention to your big toe, your second toe, your third toe on the left side, your pinky toe, your whole entire left foot. And now your attention rests on the whole entire left side of your body. Easy, loose, relaxed. And now bring your attention to the right side of your body and the left side of your body together. The whole entire body resting, easy, and loose. And now bring your attention to the top of your head, to the space in between your two eyebrows, to the tip of your nose, to the middle of your throat, to the base and root of your tongue, the tip of your tongue, the top lip, your bottom lip, your whole entire head, and now your whole entire body resting, back of the body, front of the body, your whole body, easy, loose, relaxed, soft. Now bring your attention to your breath. We'll inhale 3 times and exhale 3 times together. You inhale, exhale, 1. Inhale, exhale, 2. Inhale, exhale, 3. And now bring your attention to the sounds of the room around you. Bring your awareness to the sounds right beside you. Wiggle your fingers and your toes gently and rotate your head from side to side. When you're ready, I'd like you to roll over onto your right side in fetal posture. Try not to rush. And when you're ready and it feels good, push yourself up to a seated position facing front. Any comfortable seated position. Beautiful work. So Melissa is 1:30.
11:30 here, but yes.
It's 11:30. So I want to honor our time together today. So I think we'll just pick one of the energizing practices, or should we save it for another time?
Why don't we have anyone who needs to log off, and we can do one energizing practice. We'll make sure that it's in a shorter video so that those that want to revisit that and that want to learn it that weren't able to stay could do it.
Okay.
How does that feel? Is that okay with you, Yasmin? Okay, great.
For the conclusion of our class today, which I'll just say right now for those of us that might have those of you that might have to log off, the takeaways are that your body, you have the ability to regulate your state of mind, through these practices, moving regularly, getting out of your shoes, getting out of your chair more regularly, the yoga nidra practice and the energizing practice that we'll go through in a second. And basically that, we have a lot of internal and tools right around us without having to spend more money or add more hours to our day or more gym memberships or more stuff. Instead of adding more stuff, we can actually subtract some of our habits that we have in our regular day, and those will have profound effects on our well-being. And that taking care of ourselves is really a selfless act. It's an act of generosity to the people who love us, and it's an act of generosity to the community around us, because not only do we take care of ourselves and we feel better and we have higher qualities of life, but we also take care of the community around us, and we can relieve some of the burdens that come with like aging and stuff of those people who might need to take care of us later on. So that is the takeaway of this workshop. And I certainly love this work and would love to hear any feedback that you all have, or any questions or any further exploration that I can help you with. So just before you leave the workshop today, I just wanted to make sure and get that information to you about what the point of this is. So why don't we then go for a tapping? We'll go for emotional freedom tapping. This is a practice that is so interesting because it is something that I resisted for a while until I read some studies. Dr. Peter Levine and a whole bunch of scientists recognize, and I think we can all, as citizen scientists, recognize that when animals in the wild face danger, and then the danger is gone, they have, like, you've seen ducks like ruffle their feathers and then like they go about their business after a trauma or a dangerous situation, they will shake. So they have a built-in mechanism that just naturally happens. So gazelles, after they have been in a chase for, to the death or whatever, and if they escape, they have a tendency to either they run for long periods of time even after the danger has passed. Well, humans have this built-in mechanism too. Everyone, if they think about a time in their life where they've been like really stressed or upset and the trembling sets in, we have this natural stress relieving resetting mechanism, but we have a tendency as humans to interrupt it because it's probably inconvenient, or it is embarrassing, So, and I'm going to switch because I think we're going to not do the tapping, we're going to do the bioenergetic shaking. So excuse me, I'm explaining bioenergetic shaking, not tapping. So the shaking is built into our our systems, but we don't use it. So the reason why I'm going to do the bioenergetic shaking is because it can be relaxing if that's what your nervous system needs, or it can be energizing if that's what your nervous system needs. So why don't you stand up? And I'm just going to guide you through this. So like I said, if you've ever been in a fender bender or something, you know that feeling of shaking after the stressful, oh my gosh, excuse me. After the stressful part is over, we have a tendency to tremble, right? And then we shut that down. But what we're going to do is we can, as humans, and we have this thinking brain, the crowning jewel, the frontal lobe, we also have the ability to initiate that whenever we want. So even like I was a little nervous before I did this workshop with you today, I did the bioenergetic shaking and it settled me down, but it also made me feel revitalized. So that's the one we're going to end with today. So stand with your feet about hip distance apart. And then what we're going to do is I'm just going to show you from my hips down. You're not going to see my face, but I'm just going to show you the methodology. You're going to pretend you have little springs in your knees and you're just going to start to bounce. So it's a really gentle bounce. This is great in the bathroom stall before a presentation or before something you have to do. I always would shake, it's like shake it off. You hear the terms, we use it in our language, shake it off. So this can be very subtle or it can be very vigorous. The thing that's the most important to recognize is that you don't have to do much. Like the body will start to just shake off the stress. The nervous system recognizes it and you just naturally initiate the movement and then allow yourself permission to do it for 3 to 5 minutes. Today we'll do it for a little less. So you can lift the heels and let the heels bounce and a little movement will come through. And then I'll just show you like from the head, you can also get your neck involved and your shoulders involved. It's like in shamanism, they call this the skeleton dance, where you just can start to move around and shake. So if you feel embarrassed or anything because you're with your colleagues, you can close your eyes, but I encourage you to, I'm just going to be quiet and we're going to shake, letting all the stress dissolve out of our bodies and out of our tissues. Sometimes I give a little kick or a punch. It might seem kind of strange to do this, but it's certainly good for your nervous system and it's worth looking a little bit strange, maybe not in Trader Joe's, but you know, wherever you can. And so go ahead and get as vigorous as you want or as subtle as you want without stopping abruptly. Start to slow down and decrease the intensity of the shake. And then come to a standstill. Close your eyes or drop your gaze and just notice, soften your knees and just notice if you feel a difference. So we went for maybe like a minute and a half. You can go for as long as 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah. There's no rules. It's just like a big old, like shake it off. So that concludes our practices today. A lot in a short amount of time, I know. But in these practices that are kind of underutilized, and I wanted to at least expose you to them if you have never been exposed.